Guten Tag, everybody. What's up? Another Weird War Wednesday. Another Wednesday pops up out of nowhere. Whew. Man, the days are flying. Bo, what's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? How you doing, man? Saw your interview with Shadow. It was a good one. It was a good one. I enjoyed your take on being a DM and coming to the hobby, realizing why am I painting all this stuff and start playing. That's it. Sometimes you just got to get in there and get in the trenches and just start making it happen instead of looking for it. Just make it happen. That's awesome. Nah, it's all good, man. Sean, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Good to see you. We'll jump into the topic proper here at 8. I usually like to come in and make sure that everything's working right and whatnot. But yeah. So anyone here? Bo Paints. He has a cool a new YouTube channel where he spins wisdom and wise to all his experiences in gaming, and he's showing off his painting, and go check it out. It's a good show. I don't know. Do you have a channel, Sean? If you do, throw it up. Yeah, combat, dude. It's funny because a lot of role-playing games they fall into a war game. And I try to mitigate that. I try to do a lot of role-playing, social combat, where there's no fighting at all. It's kind of convince people, or telling lies to convince people, or mysteries or whatever. It's something different than just hack and slash. That shit can get old. Oh no, Sean, you gotta get one. All cool kids are doing it. Oh, dude. My time is so limited and my resources are so limited. Bo says I should if you find any RPG ideas. Yeah, I mean I can throw out, I try, a lot of DMs are staunch, your characters can die. And that's cool. I mean, because there has to be that fear that your character can die in a combat. But honestly, I am really story based in my role playing. I have this like a DM, massive storyline that goes years ahead. Every NPC has a background story, and the reason why is you just don't know what the players are going to do. And so I usually play a character too. And the reason I do that, it's the anchor. So if they're getting way out, they're way out there, I want to bring them back in because I want to tell a story. And as it develops, they start to when their characters live for a while, and they start running into these other characters, and then there's this relationship building with the party, other than just getting shit or accomplishing deeds to acquire wealth. When you start doing things together, it becomes a family, and then you fight harder to protect each other and to expand each other. And I usually center things in a small area, maybe a town, a small town. I give them a base of operations instead of them just roaming. So they can always come home, and home always brings some new challenge. When they leave, they come back and it's oh shit, what happened to, whatever. But yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oriental Express type thing. Yeah, Bo's saying his last session had no combat in it. I don't have a problem with that. I love role playing. But you got, role play takes a certain kind of person, because a lot of people just imagine it's all about fighting. And, it's funny because me and Mel, we play Skyrim a lot, but we mod it out to all this, immersiveness, because we want stories. My whole thing is I'm creating kind of like my own kingdom with my followers and the town and it's weird, but you live it instead of just whacking and slashing and all that shit. That gets boring. Yeah, dude. Just let me know when you guys play. I'd love to sit in, dude. Yeah, tell a story, man. I always have a story. There's always a big bad, and it's not shown. I mean, they have to find out what's happening. But their tendrils are almost in everything that they're involved in. So they'll get a little nugget here, or they'll get a little nugget there, or someone will say something, and then it's up to them to kind of put it all together. And then because there's always got to be a big bad, because there's always got to be some sort of bad guy that you're fighting against, something bigger than yourself, and it's going to take you all and everybody else that you've interacted with and you've brought into your storyline to defeat it and to combat it. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, right on. Oh, Omen plays too. Yeah, that's cool. All right, guys. Hey, it's 8 o'clock. Weird World War II is on the march, so let's ring that bell. Ding, ding, ding. All right, so tonight we were going to talk about what kind of creatures roam your Weird World War II battlefields, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean a creature that's associated with a certain belligerent, with like super tech or mystical knowledge or whatever. It could just be like regional creatures or manifested creatures at will through magics and whatnot. I'm just curious. So like in my world, I really like to keep, since World War II is a worldwide conflict, right? So, and I'm a big like people person. I love watching people's and learning different people's cultures. And I want to do that in my gaming. So like, since World War II is a worldwide conflict, I like to take myths and legends and folklore of certain areas where the fighting is taking place. And for whatever reason, those creatures and those entities and characteristics or whatnot manifest themselves in those areas where they're like believed. So let's say, perfect example, like on the picture for the thing is like is the Baba Yaga, right? So if you're playing in the Soviet Union, fighting in it, or you're playing as a Soviet soldier, Soviet army, or whatever it is, Baba Yaga is in the mix because it's the area that it stems from, and it's the myth that the people involved in the conflict at that point believe in, or grew up with, or whatever. Now, but like just for an example, Baba Yaga has the story is varied in that she's good, she's evil, she does these certain things. So because of that, it's a perfect device to like add to any see, one of my big things when I run a battle, I usually, like, a lot of times I'll just be a third party running the battle, and it's common that I enter a third party into the conflict. So let's say you're playing a game and the Germans are just leveling the Soviet player, right? Well, I might just throw in just all of a sudden Baba Yaga's on the field, right? And she's fighting for the Soviets. So now that the Germans don't just have to worry about the Soviets, now there's this new thing to combat, to try to slow up that onslaught and give the Soviet player a chance, and also give the German, just knock him off his feet, blunt that progress, and see what happens. It's weird war. On my tables, you don't know what the fuck's going to happen. I mean, I've had games where we're in the bulge, and vampires descend on the battlefield, and they're killing everybody. They're just like, there's a group of vampires that come down, and we played a Battle of the Bulge game, a night game. We had a couple Panthers with the IR sets, and you had the German and the vampire IR systems, and they're hunting down these GIs in these fortified positions, and it was badass. There's all this crazy shit happened, and all of a sudden, one of the vampire Germans gets attacked by a vampire, and then like one of the tanks gets swarmed by a bunch of vampires. And then the vampires weren't just killing the Germans; they would kill the Americans too. So, in one game, I did that game. The Germans and the American players actually teamed up. They went like back to back, and they like fought with each other instead of against each other. So that's a cool thing to see on the battlefield when it comes naturally. Like they're like, hey, let's fight these vampires, and then we'll just, retreat off the battlefield where we're at or whatever. It's pretty cool. All right, so let's jump into the remarks here real quick. So Bo says he likes werewolves, zombies, fool wizards, and vampires. Yeah, so Japan and China. I mean, lots of both cultures are just seething with ancient monsters and deities and creatures or whatever. So like you got dragons, like Asian dragons. Asian dragons aren't like European dragons. They're more like benevolent. I mean, there are some bad ones, but they're mostly benevolent kind of creatures. Now, I talked to a couple buddies that live in Japan, and I asked them, like, what kind of weird world creatures do you think like the Japanese culture would embrace? And he said something about like almost like environmental spirits, like druidic kind of thing, like creatures that protect the nature and the psychic, or the mental fortitude or whatever. So you'd have kind of like druidic powers. So like in my Japanese weird war, I've got like these guys that can manipulate nature. They're like druids. They can manipulate insect swarms to like cause insects to attack their targets or to obscure the enemy so they can't see because there's so many insects in the way. And then there's like forest spirits and all that shit. Now I know the Chinese have a big and I think it's the Chinese and the Japanese have the big thing about hunger ghosts. Something about like lots of different spirits and ghosts and ghouls that all deal with some sort of hunger. Like they hunger in their afterlife, so they go out, they feed off the living, be it blood or flesh or their emotions or whatever it is. So there's a lot of like ghosts in Asian culture. Now, again, and there's also like the Peloponnesian cultures, because they're around water. You have a lot of creatures that are like water based. You've got, your classic sea monster type creatures. You got like your deep one type creature. I can't remember what they're called, but I have a book of just notes that I do for my Battleground Weird War II. And I'll go into like Wikipedia and look up folklore, like let's say Asian folklore. And I'll read like for hours. I'll read about, Asian folklore and like, what these creatures or these monsters or deities or, whatever they are and what they do, what their characteristics are. It's a lot of fun. And that's another thing about gaming. I don't just game. I like get into like gaming and I like read tons of shit. I read a lot. And although I'm playing Weird War, all my shit is based around like hard historical fact, be it historical fact in myths and legends or hard historical fact in like, actual history book kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the Oni or whatever you guys want to call them. Yeah, that's the Japanese like ghosts. And there's different kinds of them. There's, and they have different characteristics and traits. I have them as the Japanese are able to control those kind of creatures. So they're able to, send these out into the battlefield and really kick some ass. Let's see. Terracotta warriors and the mummies. Yeah. You got all that stuff for the Chinese. Yeah, the Tengu and all the different spirits in Morocco. So Sean says in Morocco, I'm doing a time skip and fighting Tigris. Oh, and Berbers. Yeah. So those. Okay. So the Dinjin. Okay, the Jin or whatever they call them. So you mentioned that before. So the Berbers and those are like local, like they're like the ancient peoples of that area. And of course, they bring these legends of the jinn, which so genies, or jinns. In the stuff that I've read, they're mostly malevolent. They usually, they give you that wish, but there's always a catch. It's that classic, devilish thing. give the wish, but the wish has a price. Exactly. Like if you wish for, like Mel was saying, if you wish for money, they'll give you money, but it's it's an inheritance from like your most beloved family member that died, and for you to get that money, they had to die. That kind of shit. So yeah. So and like like Sean is saying, you can find like I'm really big into Native American culture stuff, right? And the Native Americans, or the first tribes, I believe, like the Canadians, that's what they label the Native Americans. Is rich with like creatures and demons and devils and spirits. It's mostly spirits. They don't have demons and devils. That's a Judeo-Christian thing. So it's spirits. So like like the skinwalkers. Those are like I believe skinwalkers, or the Wendigo and the skinwalkers, are evil spirits that come back from the dead of a person who has committed cannibalism. So, in those days, where, the land is, thin, and, you really have to fight to stay alive. And if you fall down that path of cannibalism, in your culture, first of all, it's bad. You don't want to be eating people, but it tells you why you shouldn't eat people, because there's a punishment after death. You come back as this creature, that's constant. And so that's a big trait in a lot of cultures, is the hunger creature. It's like, the reason might be is because until modern times, people were lacking in food in general. I mean, you had to fight hard. There wasn't a lot of plentiful access to food. So I'm sure most people were hungry. They didn't have a lot of food to begin with. So it falls into their cultures in saying that these are creatures that were never, satisfied in life, and then in death, they're even more so ravenous. So let's see. Okay, man, Bo. Good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping by, bud. Having fun at school. Be the bus driver. Take him to school, brother. Oh, we got a storm bearing down on us here, guys. I think that was a truck, baby. That's a truck. Oh, okay. Mel is she's got fear of storms. But yeah, so like, and then like, you can have your manifested creatures. So those would be your creatures created through magic or ritual. So that would be like your Cthulhu creatures, because, I mean, if you're familiar with the Cthulhu stuff, the mythos stuff, they're in different planes, or they're in outer space or whatever. They're like aliens. All that Cthulhu shit is all aliens. They're all fucking aliens. So, and they're, hey, Jay, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. Oh, happy birthday, by the way, bro. Happy birthday to you. Oh, shit. You better had an orgy or gone to the moon or some shit. That's what I'm telling Mel. When I turn 50 this year, orgy. Or
you don't be sitting at the house.
Fucking better not be sitting at the house. I better have a bunch of titties and like, or I'm going to the moon or something, or I'm gonna like whatever. I'm gonna be eating a cupcake. Yeah. Yeah, that's my 50th anniversary, or my 50th birthday surprise from Mel.
Suck it up, cupcake.
Yeah, but yeah, so like Cthulhu, it's all, they're all aliens, or from, or creatures from different dimensions. So technically, they've got to be brought to Earth. Like the big ones are brought to Earth via, opening portals, or whatever it is, to some sort of ritual to get them there. Now, some of the mythos can travel interstellar, so they do. Like the Migo, they live on Pluto. They just, fly, or whatever, they, teleport, or they by scientific means, or even mystical means, they're able to move because they're on our plane. So you got all that shit. Now you can also do like, you can fall into the religious, manifesting of things like, Satanism, the manifest whatever demons and devils through ritual. You can, or it doesn't even have to be malevolent stuff. It can be benevolent. It could be like, you praying to praying to God, and God sends down an angel, or, I don't know, man. Whenever God sends an angel to earth, it's fucking bad news. It's always followed by fucking devastation. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad. But so Sean says he's also doing Plum Island research, Montauk monster canisters of zombie samples from different battlefields to gain function. Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, like there's a cool myth in the U.S. Is the Roanoke expedition or colony or whatever. They just vanish. And you could, but they're all from that area, that New England area. So they bring that conscious, like belief of the Roanoke mystery, whatever, to where they're at, and that can manifest in some way where they're at. So you can bring North American culture, monsters or whatever, to other areas of the world, because you can just say the combined belief of the people involved in the fighting in that point have manifested, maybe under the stress or the fear or the terror that they're experiencing. It manifests these strange creatures for whatever reason, to either be beneficial or a hindrance to them. Yeah. Dark, yeah. So, and that's and look, Judeo-Christian and Islamic religions have a lot of fucking mysticism in them, guys. So if you're a religious person, and it's just a game, whatever, just set that aside, and then you can bring forth the fallen. You can because all those faiths share a core background with the Old Testament kind of shit. So like so they have similar demons and devils and all that shit in their stories. So you can bring forth those entities or creatures, but they can be, worked to however the slant is for that religion. And they might be the same creature, but because of whoever casted it or called them or manipulated them to be where they're at, maybe they take those characteristics of that individual. So let's say that individual is Islamic. The creature in question would take the traits of the Islamic belief on the battlefield at that time. So so you can have like the same like angel or devil, and they have different characteristics depending on who's called them or who they're drawn to or whatever on the battlefield. So you can get a lot of legwork out of one thing. Chuck, good to see you, bud. Oh yeah. So yeah, yeah. Power armor is always a good. It's not quite a creature though, But like the spirit destiny, and then you have those implements, those magical implements, that the reliquary or whatever it might be that has power. So like the Ark of the Covenant, that could be a whole campaign, guys. Like securing the Ark of the Covenant. Like in my Weird World War II, I'll let a little bit out. So in history, or in modern history, there's a Christian set of faith in Ethiopia, okay? And they claim to actually possess the Ark of the Covenant. So, and it's shit like that. It's like, okay, so in modern day times, there's a sect of Christianity in Ethiopia which says that they have the Ark of the Covenant. Well, why not use that, rewind, take you back to World War II, and then all of a sudden you're playing Italians versus Ethiopians in the mid-30s because they're at war, right? The Italians and the Ethiopians were fighting, like open conflict. And so who's to say maybe the Ethiopians use the Ark of the Covenant against the Italians? Then they become a regional power because of this mystical ability. And then the Ethiopians become an actual like major world power, not because of their technology or their military prowess, but their mystical power that like on the battlefield, like in like Raiders of the Lost Ark, anybody who faces the Ark is defeated. Maybe they have some sort of ability that's like that. So now you have, let's say the Ethiopians kick the shit out of the Italians, right? And the Italians are on their last leg. They ask help from the Nazis. The Nazis come in with their mystical fool society or whatever. And then you have mysticism, Nordic mysticism and Western European mysticism versus, the Ethiopian, Ark of the Covenant, and they're trying to, blunt each other or something like that. You go crazy. It's great. But it's all like kind of it's all grounded in like real world history. All that shit I just talked about comes from, there was a war between Ethiopia and Italy in the 30s. And then Ethiopia, Christian church in Ethiopia says that they have the Ark of the Covenant. There you go. You just created this massive world to just play with. Hey, Adam's on the board. What's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. So Chuck says, that's one of the things I like about the Weird War genre. You can fit so many different things into it. Weird science, occult, vampires. Yeah, man. It's like, it's as weird as you want it to be. Oh, yeah, the Golem. Yeah. So in my world, in my Weird War story, the Jews have the means to create the Golem to help them defend. Now, you can take that early. Like, you can take that, like, during the Night of the Long Knives and have, like, the Jew not even succumb to the Nazi, imprisoning during that time. They rise up and defend against it. So now you might even play a time frame where the Nazis are trying to subdue the Jews in Germany, but the Jews are like, fuck you, we got mysticism, and wow, and they're manifesting armies of Gollum or whatever kind of shit. And then who's to say the Nazis stay in power? Maybe, because of that power and those added elements, they're able to take down the Nazi regime. So you can go and then you can even say they manifest during maybe the Warsaw Uprising, or they even, hell, maybe it manifests in I know that's a touchy subject to a lot of people, but you could play games where like a concentration camp, inmates rise up and they use mysticism to help with that, and they escape and they destroy their captors. And you can go, it depends on how you want to play. I mean, that's pretty heavy, and that's that can get sticky with certain people. But again, it's a game. You're not glorifying, you're just playing. Okay, you're just playing a game. It's like telling a story. It's like watching a movie. Yeah, Abyssinia. So Adam from Wargaming China, he has a great theory about how the Italians could have been like a major power as big as the Nazis were during the war. And by doing so, they could secure, the Suez Canal, and they could secure, North Africa. So, and Italy would be drawn into kind of like, they're swelled with pride because they own the Suez. They've defeated the British and their colonies in North Africa, and so the swelling of the pride and prestige of Italy grows because of these victories, and Italy becomes a big factor, in the war, more so than they took part in the historical context. Yeah, so Ethiopian Coptic Church. So yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, so Adam says the Ethiopian Coptic Church was viewed by Italy as the backbone of resistance, and thus was heavily persecuted, with many priests murdered and churches desecrated and religious scrolls burned. It was never recovered. See, there you go. So again, you're taking these realistic examples of history and you're weaving it into your own story. So the Italians realize that the Coptic Church has the has the ark, and they're kidnapping priests, and they're interrogating them, they're dying, and they're burning down churches, and they're trying to subjugate and subdue that church in fear because they would use this weapon, and that in itself could be a reason the Ethiopians come, they set aside their differences, religious or otherwise, and they all team up together, and they have this weapon, and they team up and they fight against the Italians, and there's a big kerfluffle. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so see, look at that. Sean, you just learned something today. Now you can do some crazy shit on your own. You can come up with whatever. Africa is a fantastic theater that is sorely not used in Weird World War II. You'll have the North Africa shit with the Africa Corps and all that crap. But man, Africa's massive. It's fucking massive. And there's tons of different cultures in there. You got colonial cultures, you got, native cultures, and you got, and you could have like, the changing of like religions, and then the conflict of the different tribes and their, internal struggles and their internal beliefs against each other. I mean, just because you're playing Weird World War II doesn't mean you don't have multiple, African nations, like, tribe nations fighting each other. It doesn't have to be Germans and Italians and, Commonwealth or Americans. It could be like, and I'm ignorant to that. So I'll just say the A's versus the B's, tribes fighting each other. And then maybe they team up to fight the colonials, or the colonials team up with certain tribes. It's full of opportunities, especially in Weird War. And Adam's down in Australia. Shit, man, Australia's got the Aborigine, they got some awesome like monsters and shit. I remember reading one. I was doing research because I was wanting to bring like, you have all the Asnak guys fighting, and I wanted to bring some of the stuff from Australia to the area that they're fighting. And I read this one. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a creature that lives in the top of a tree. Okay, and what it does is it's like it stays in this tree, and like the Aborigines would like because out in the wastes of the outback, there's not a lot of tree coverage in areas. And when they do find a tree, the Aborigines would gravitate towards that to seek cover from the sun. Well, it's the perfect ambush point because these Aborigines would come underneath the tree, and this creature would attack them from the tree, and then eat them up, and then go back into the tree and wait for the next victim. So that's fucking awesome. So just imagine you're playing a straight historical, North Africa. You've got some Germans, trudging through the fucking wastes, and they pull over to just get a little shade for a minute to, do some maintenance on their vehicle or whatever. And then you got this fucking creature come down and start fucking killing you and stuff. There you go. There's a Weird War battle for you right there. But yeah, so I mean, there's lots of cool, and then man, I'm a big gore hound and sci-fi freak and stuff. So you can take a lot of movie ideas that you watch on TV or whatever, and you can just work it into your game. We kind of fall. Well, I say we, but I don't necessarily. But the people who are producing product kind of get caught up in these common tropes. It's got to be werewolves or fucking zombies. It's got to be power armor, and that's what the Weird War has to be. And fuck that. You can make it whatever you want, man. I mean, it can be angels and devils. You can have Armageddon happening during World War II. And you've got and angels and devils. I mean, they may not necessarily pick a side. Maybe they're just like, say you have a battle, you're playing a battle of whatever in France. You got, Germans and fucking Brits, and they're fighting. And then all of a sudden, a devil and an angel, or a fallen angel and a righteous angel, are fighting on the battlefield along with all this shit. They're not fighting them, they're fighting each other. And maybe just them being manifest is enough to drive like certain people crazy, or certain people are emboldened by a certain side, or maybe like there's righteous in both the Commonwealth and the German, so they're infused with righteous power, and then there's some that are evil that are infused with evil power, and then there's fighting amongst themselves and then against each other. It could be a whole clusterfuck. You can just go crazy. So, but again, a lot of times the creatures I like to use are usually an independent party. They're not necessarily attached to a specific belligerent, because you want that variable. That's one thing that a lot of these fucking most war games nowadays are tournament designed. You have fucking point costs, and then you do your army list, and you show your army to the fucking enemy. What the fuck? I have never in my life willfully shown my army list to an opponent. Why would I do that? Why would I show my opponent everything that I have? Now, there needs to be a level of trust there, but honestly, I wouldn't give a shit if the guy, fuck me in points. I don't care. I don't play with points anyway, so I don't really give a shit, But you see that's why I play WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. The only thing that differs is things. I have it in my rule book. It says things that couldn't easily be discerned from a distance. So you could tell a person's weapon in their hand if it's a heavy weapon or a rifle, or he has some sort of pistol or something. You could see that visually, but you couldn't tell what kind of pistol. You might not be able to tell what kind of or what exact model rifle. And if he has if he has grenades on him, you couldn't quite tell that. Now, but if he's got a bazooka, you could tell a bazooka. You probably won't tell what model or whatever, but you'd sell, okay, there's some sort of anti-tank, fucking rocket launcher. So there's that. And with vehicles, you couldn't tell the stowage on a vehicle. If you saw if there was an anti-air, and with vehicles, you couldn't tell the stowage on a vehicle. If you saw if there was an anti-aircraft gun, you would be able to see that, visually looking at it. But you couldn't tell if there was teller mines on the side of it, or the Germans, they had placed, so the Germans had a one-shot flamethrower, right? It's kind of like a Panzerfaust, but it was like a fucking flamethrower. So, and there's a blend. I don't know why no one uses that shit. That was around. This is a single shot fucking flamethrower. But anyway, there's some pictures of these things kind of bolted on to Panthers, and they're so when enemy infantry would run up to try to place mines, they click the button or whatever, and these flames. The Germans had that defense anyway with the close-in defense weapon. It's basically a fucking flare gun that's shot within the turret, and they can rotate it around in what direction they want to hit it, and they can throw out. That's what they use for their smoke launchers. They used to have those external cup holder smoke launchers, but they got rid of that shit because I guess when they got hit, they would activate and cause problems with it. But they went to that launcher, that little grenade launcher, and they shot it out of the tank, kind of like the Americans had with the 2-inch mortars in the M4s that shot forward. That's how they would deploy their smoke. But anyway, the Germans, they had a high explosive round for that thing. So what they do is, let's say some Soviets are jumping on top, they're trying to whatever. They would shoot this grenade straight up, and it would explode above, like an airburst, and it would shower the tank with shrapnel. And that would be one way to try to get enemy infantry off your tank, or the tank next to you would just start shooting your tank with its machine guns and shit and get all those guys off there. But anyway, back to the Weird War. So if you're having if you're using creatures that are uniformed in a certain belligerent, so let's say vampires, okay? Now, I would think only certain nations would use vampire. The fucking Nazis would, the Soviets would. I don't know if the Commonwealth would, or the Americans necessarily. I don't think, I don't know. But desperation causes desperate decision makings. But if it's a uniformed creature, you would think that the 2-inch shot like a white phosphorus that caused their smoke. Now the Germans didn't use white phosphorus. They used a chemical smoke. So, but the Americans chose to use white. I believe the Americans did have a chemical smoke grenade and smoke rounds, but they weren't used as much as the white phosphorus. It's weird because I've seen videos of the Germans' smoke grenades. Some of them are made of glass, and you just smash the glass, and it's some sort of like when it mixes with the air, it starts to cause like this smoke. It's pretty interesting, and it's kind of like, and it when it sits on it, like let's say they threw it at a vehicle, and it like stuck on the vehicle, and then the vehicle, it was like it wasn't. So like the Americans using a Willie Pete, they throw a canister grenade and it bounces and it just causes, on the ground. But this glass one they had, it would like smash up against the armor and then it would be stuck on there and then it would start to smoke on the armor. So I think that's pretty fucking sweet. You just, it didn't last a whole long time, but enough to obscure, a gunner for a couple seconds could, keep your ass alive. But so, okay, if you have uniformed or general issue kind of creatures in a belligerent army, you would assume that the enemy armies of that country would have some sort of deterrent. So let's say Germans are mobilizing vampires in their units in whatever way, maybe, on like a divisional level or, a regimental level, maybe they have like an element of vampires to do whatever. Well, you would think, the Allied units would have some sort of counter. So maybe the units are being infused with vampire hunters or, religious, individuals to help stymie this kind of threat. So if you're going to make, a creature common, you're gonna have to make a counter to that creature common as well. Because that's just how warfare works. There's always a counter to someone's benefit. So you come up with a badass super armor thick tank. Next thing you know, you got tech where they're developing rounds like tungsten rounds or squash head rounds to help penetrate that shit. You still have that thick ass armored tank, but there's implements to defeat it as well. So if you do uniformed creatures, I would definitely have some sort of uniform defense against them. And that could be anything. That could be like individuals with the knowledge to counter attack them, or weaponry that counters them. Maybe there's like, if you're going like, we'll stick with vampires, maybe they have holy water grenades, or people are issued with stakes. See, what's interesting about vampires, guys, is vampires is a very general term for a lot of different creatures. Some, like, even in European culture, some vampires can't be killed at all. Some vampires, the only way you can keep them from doing shit is you got to bury them, pin them to the ground with a stake through the heart in a crossroads. It has to be in the middle of a crossroads. That's the fucking, you can't kill them. You can't burn them. But that's the only way to make them, is to stick them in a fucking crossroads, bury them underground in a crossroads. And there's all sorts of different types of vampires. There's vampires in every culture. The Chinese have bouncing vampires. The Japanese have those like hunger oni that are basically vampires. Aborigines, I believe, have a sort of creature that feeds off the blood. Every culture has some sort of hunger creature, and usually blood, because that's most terrifying, because that's what we have that is vital to us, is our own blood. And the violation of something coming to you and consuming your blood is very intimate and personal. It's not done from far away. It happens right close. So it's more frightening. So most cultures have some sort of vampiric monster or creature, or like a race of whatever. So vampires are prevalent. Now, like were creatures are another big thing, in most cultures, is men turning into creatures for whatever reason, be it on, purpose or by some curse. Curses are huge, especially in Asian cultures. Curses are massive. Now I'm not really sure, but I'm very ignorant about a lot of African cultures, which sucks. I should know more about African cultures because there's a shitload of cultures in Africa. And Adam, you being from that region, I mean, I'm sure you've come into contact with locals that have certain, cultural, fear, curses or ghost stories and all that shit that can be used in the kind of weird war. There you go. I'm not sure what. Yeah. So Adam references if you're in South Africa, you would feel a Tokal Oshi, and in Australia, you would feel the Yowies. So I assume those are kind of like vampiric creatures. So again, they're in every fucking culture. All you got to do is reach out and just read, and you don't have to. You can just watch some movies, man. Watch some like Asian horror movies, dude. They're fucking crazy, But there's that one. I think the craziest one. I think it's Chinese culture. It's like a vampire, but what happens is like the vampire like controls a body, and then at night it comes out of the body, just the head, and then its guts come out of the body and flies around in the air and kills their people, or their prey, and then it flies back before daylight and enters back into it puts the guts back in the body and its head. So it's like, what the fuck? But I mean, it's because there's a couple of it's a big long word. I can't even say the word. But look it up. I can't remember what the damn thing is called, but it's fucking nuts. So it's scary enough to just see a head floating at you with like fangs and shit. But then like it's lungs and heart and intestines along with it, like floating with it. That's fucking gross. But hey guys, we're having some bad weather, so if I cut out, it's probably from this weather. So don't fear. But yeah, so lots and lots of culture and time frames to choose from for any of your creatures in Weird World War II. We're kind of, the genre is kind of stuck in the Western European kind of, monsters, because, movies are made with it, whatever. But like Middle Eastern coasters, they have a lot of the spirits, the jinn, and then just not even like little creatures, like like in Texas, we have the chupacabra. I mean, chupacabra, guys, is basically a dog with mange that someone saw, and it was really gross, and they call it a goat sucker. So I mean, but you know what? That's a modern day cryptid, I guess is what they call them. Cryptids, right? Isn't that they call them, baby? Like weird, like Bigfoot type shit. It's just made up shit. Say something funny to say, but you got enough people. Let's say you have enough people to hear that story over and over, people referring to it in a certain way, then it starts to manifest on the battlefields that they're fighting in or whatever. So it's and that could just be enough. The world is in such disarray and horror that the terror and the nightmares, the subconscious nightmares of humanity is actually manifesting. And that can be manifested in anything. Your own creation,
Oh my goodness.
Traditional, historical. What's up, babe?
Nothing. I don't want to interrupt
You okay?
March Hill and Waco.
Hey, hail. That
It
means
was like,
fucking insurance money.
like golf ball size.
Oh, really? Yeah, we got some bad weather coming through Texas right now. The Minhu in Hawaii. Okay, so there's just one. It might be those. Are those is that like ghost army, like a Hawaiian army that like travels across like areas at night? I read a book. It's called Hawaiian Dick. It's actually a comic book. And it's about like this private detective in like I think it's in the 50s. He's going through this murder mystery or whatever, and it becomes kind of a mystical story. But he he encounters like this it's a regional like thing story. It's a ghost of like Hawaiian like warriors, like ancient warriors that are all like travel the misty, you know. Oh, Mel's freaking out. What's the matter, babe? There's nothing we can do. And guys, we're in a trailer, so we're fucked. Is it coming south?
It's coming. We're the blue dot.
Yeah, I know. How's it moving though? I know, but how is it moving? It's not moving. Is it moving forward or is it moving up? Is it moving down? Is it moving sideways?
There.
Yeah, it's moving to the east.
Yeah, we're right here and we're hitting all the red.
I know, I see it. Babe. Do you want to go hide somewhere?
Shut up.
No, I'm asking you.
No, it's just scary.
Mel's really apprehensive when it comes to bad weather, which is, you
I'm
know,
a tornado watcher.
she's a tornado freak. She like freaks out about tornadoes. But yeah, so I've always wanted to do like, because in my, as we advance through my campaign, in my Weird World War II campaign, when we get to like the invasion of Hawaii about the Japanese, it's going to be more than just the aerial bombardment of the fleet. It's going to be actually some landing, like invasion landings. And I'm hoping to, you know, I don't want to tell you a lot about the story because I want you to see it as we evolve, as we move through it. But I'm hoping to use some Hawaiian, like traditional, like folklore against the Japanese when they do that landing and stuff. So. They're little. Oh, they're little people. Okay, they're like kind of like a dwarf or a gremlin or goblin or something.
Can't say dwarf no more.
No, dwarf as in like a mystical creature, not a person. God Almighty, not a midget.
Golly, you really can't say that.
Woo! I'm breaking the laws, guys.
God.
Let's see. Yeah. So. Okay, drove 300 to 500 off the cliffs. Damn. You know, there's a story. I don't know. I'm sure you guys know this, but during the attack of Pearl, a Japanese pilot crash landed in one of the small like Hawaiian islands, like, you know, and there's only like a handful of, you know, Hawaiian natives that live on it, right? And they didn't know what this guy was. They didn't know about the war going on and all that shit. And they helped this guy, right? They helped this pilot. And a lot of shit happened. I mean, they finally found out that, you know, this is an invader and they fucking kill the guy and they get whatever. But it didn't matter. So what happened is the American government took that instant, just that one fucking misunderstanding, and what they did is they manipulated that story in that the Asian, they weren't even fucking Asian descent. They're fucking Hawaiian. Anyway, they're saying that the Asian descended American, Japanese descended, the Nippon Americans would do that same thing. They would support and help their their traditional country if they were to invade the West Coast. And with that, they instituted the whole fucking, the internment of all the fucking Japanese Americans on the West Coast. It's that fucking, and we're talking about taking little snippets of, historical shit and manipulating it into our story. Dude, same thing with governments and in reality. They take that one little thing, it wasn't even what they said happened, and they twist it and they say, okay, that's justification for fucking imprisoning and the destroying of people's lives. It's fucking crazy. Bed knobs and broomsticks. Fuck yeah, that's one of the earliest Weird Wars, man, right there. Oh yeah. I mean, that is the best scene. That when the Germans land and they're invading. Not on her watch, man.
It's funny. The first time I watched that, I was in Germany as a little girl.
Oh, so Mel saw that as a little girl when she was stationed, when her family was stationed in Germany. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's a great scene where she, animates all the armor. There's a guy, I think it's shit. I can't remember who does it, but someone does a miniature of her. What's her name? You remember her name? The character name? I can't remember her name. I can't remember, but she's on a broomstick. She's flying, with the cavalry, saber, with the cavalry saber and like the tin hat. It's pretty cool. I need to get that. That's a cool mini. I think it's shit. I can't remember. But anyway, that's a cool mini. But that's a great movie. I mean, you can do that. Lots of witches. Every culture has some sort of witch, or warlock. I would think those would be more like reliant ones. They're either doing something to protect themselves, or hell, I mean, a government could hire a fucking warlock and say, "Hey, we won't kill you." Or like, one of the big things that I have is like, if I think like the fascist governments of the time in World War II have a lot of possibilities when it comes to mystical shit, and the reason why is they don't have any fucking morals, right? So like, let's say a vampire and his coven, or whatever they call a group of vampires, comes up to fucking Hitler and says, "Listen, we can make fucking vampires. We can help you with this war. All we need is breeding stock, right? We just need to feed. You feed us, and we will fucking, work for you." So, and what are the Germans doing? They're fucking, they're imprisoning whole peoples. So next thing you know, they're feeding them to the fucking vampires, or like the fucking or whatever whatever creature, that's their benefit. Or like the deep ones. The deep ones need breeding stock, right? So it's like, okay, we're going to give you all these prisoners that we have, the Jews, the gypsies, POWs, whatever. Take them, do whatever the fuck you want with them, but give us, in return, give us your mystical powers and all that shit. So I could see a lot of the fascist nations, because they're fascists and they have large populations of imprisoned and oppressed people, that they'll use those people as leverage to get these, feed these mystical, weapons. Ooh. All right, guys. So listen, we're almost an hour in. It's starting to hail here. Mel's freaking out. I'm gonna go take care of her. And I wanted to say, everybody, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Good to see you, Adam, Sean, Jason. Thanks for swinging by, brother. Happy birthday to you. I'll call you tomorrow, dude. I got a new phone, so it's the same number. It's the same number, but yeah, it's just need to. But yeah, also want to say, Chuck, thanks for swinging by, and Bo for coming by earlier. All right, guys, it's getting pretty heavy here. So whatever you do, wish us luck, because it's fucking bad. We live in a trailer, and keep it weird. See ya.